My name is Catherine Hall. I am 52 years old. I live in Chicago, Illinois. I own a company that employs over 300 people. I have a daughter who just got engaged to the most wonderful man she has ever loved. I have a sister named Lagertha who stood up at that engagement party in a room full of people who matter to me and decided that this moment would be the perfect time to remind everyone of who she always believed I was. Small, invisible, beneath her. And here's the thing, nobody in that room knew, except me, that every single paycheck Lagertha had cashed for the last 4 years came from me. She laughed at me in front of my daughter's future in-laws. She clinked her glass of wine from a bottle that cost more than her first car, and she made a joke. A long, slow, calculated joke. The kind of joke that isn't really a joke at all. The kind of joke that is actually a 20-year-old wound dressed up in a party frock. And I smiled. I smiled because I knew something she didn't. I smiled because the moment she opened her mouth that night, the clock started ticking on the most important revelation of both our lives. This is that story. Every word of it is true, and I am telling it because I know that somewhere out there you are carrying something heavy too. You are the one who got overlooked. You are the one who sat quietly at the table while someone else got the applause. You are the one who built something magnificent in the dark, while everyone else assumed you were doing nothing at all. This is for you. Stay with me, I promise. Every single second of this story is worth it. Before I go any further, if you are new here, please subscribe. Your support means everything, and it reminds me that I am not alone in this. Hit that subscribe button right now. It takes 2 seconds, and it tells me that stories like this one, real, raw, human stories, matter to someone other than just me. And trust me, you are going to want to be here for what comes next, because this story is only just beginning. Let me take you back. Not to the engagement party. Not yet. First, you need to understand who I was before I became who I am. Because the woman standing in that ballroom, calm, composed, smiling quietly while her sister sharpened a knife at the dinner table, didn't appear out of thin air. She was built, slowly, painfully, deliberately. One humiliation at a time. I grew up in a small house in Evanston, Illinois. My parents, Maggie and Brad Hall, were good, decent, hardworking people who never had enough money and always had enough love. But love, as beautiful as it is, does not protect you from the particular cruelty of a sibling who decides very early on that there is only room for one star in the family constellation, and Lagertha decided that star was her. Lagertha Hall, 4 years older than me, 4 inches taller, 4 times louder. She was everything I was not, effortlessly social, magnetically charming, devastatingly beautiful in the way that makes rooms go quiet when a person walks in. She was the child my mother introduced first at parties. She was the one my father bragged about to his coworkers. She was the one who got the lead in every school play, the trophy at every swim meet, the scholarship that everyone said proved she was destined for something great. And I was the other one. Not unkindly. Nobody was cruel to me directly. Nobody sat me down and said, "Catherine, you are less important." Nobody needed to. These things are communicated in 1,000 smaller ways. In the fraction of a second, a parent's eyes light up differently for one child than another. In the way a grandmother always asked Lagertha about her plans and asked me if I was doing okay. In the way Lagertha herself, my own blood, would introduce me at her college parties as, "My little sister, she's very quiet, but she means well." She means well. I was 20 years old the first time I heard that phrase used to describe me, and understood with the full clarity of an adult brain what it actually meant. She means well is what you say about someone who has failed at something but tried hard. She means well is what you say about the participation trophy. She means well is what you say when you want to be kind and dismissive at the same time. I went home that night and I sat in my tiny apartment. I was renting a single room from a woman named Georgia Sinclair, a retired school teacher who kept cats and always had soup on the stove, and I made a decision. A quiet, certain, unshakable decision. I was going to build something. I did not know what yet. I did not have money or connections or a particularly impressive resume. What I had was a mind that never stopped moving, an obsessive attention to detail, and a bone-deep need to prove, not to Lagertha, not to my parents, but to myself, that I was not the woman everybody seemed to believe I was. So I started. I had been working as an administrative assistant at a mid-sized logistics company run by a man named Peter Hurst. Peter Hurst was not a visionary. He was competent, reliable, and deeply unimaginative, which meant that the company ran adequately but never brilliantly. I watched him for 3 years. I watched every process, every bottleneck, every place where money was being left on the table because nobody was paying close enough attention. I took notes, literal physical notes, in a journal I kept hidden in my desk drawer because I did not want anyone to know what I was doing. I did not want anyone to know because I had spent enough years being she means well to understand that when people with no track record announce ambitious plans, the world does not encourage them, the world laughs, and I had been laughed at enough. So I said nothing. I watched. I saved. For 4 years, I lived on almost nothing. No vacations, no new clothes, no nights out, and I saved. I took on freelance work on weekends. I taught myself to code through online courses at midnight after long days at the office. I read every book I could find on supply chain management, business development, and entrepreneurship. I filled notebooks. I built spreadsheets. I drafted and redrafted a business plan that began as a fantasy and slowly, painstakingly became something real. And then, at 31 years old, I walked into a meeting with a man named Leonard Johnson, a venture capitalist who had been referred to me by Georgia Sinclair's nephew of all people, and I pitched my idea. A boutique logistics consultancy, specializing in mid-market companies that were hemorrhaging money through inefficient operations. I had the data, I had the model. I had 3 years of detailed case studies based entirely on watching Peter Hurst's company operate, and I had the projections to show exactly how much money a company like that could save with the right systems in place. Leonard Johnson looked at me across his mahogany desk. This was in the old Hancock building. I remember the view. I remember the way the lake looked like hammered silver that morning. And he said, "How much do you need to start?" I told him. He said yes. And that was the beginning. I named the company Imori Consulting Group. The name came from a combination of 2 words I wrote down in a notebook the night I decided to start it: empower and horizon. I know that sounds a little precious now, and maybe it is, but at 31 years old, sitting in a one-room apartment, building something from nothing, the name meant everything to me. It meant I was looking forward. It meant I was done looking back. The early years were brutal. There is no other word for it. I worked 16-hour days. I lost clients I thought were certain, and won clients I never expected. I hired my first employee, a young analyst named Sean Henderson, barely 24 years old, so eager and so bright it sometimes made my chest ache to watch him work, and I remember the weight of knowing that another human being's livelihood now depended on my decisions. I did not tell Lagertha what I was building. I did not tell my parents in any detail. When they asked how work was going, I said fine. When Lagertha called, which was infrequently and always when she needed something, I said I was doing some consulting work. She never asked follow-up questions. Lagertha was constitutionally incapable of sustained interest in anyone's life but her own. She was, during those years, working as a senior marketing director for a chain of boutique hotels. She was good at her job. I will always give her that. Lagertha was never incompetent, and she carried her title with the particular pride of someone who believes a corporate job title is equivalent to personal worth. She made a comfortable salary. She drove a nice car. She took expensive holidays and posted photographs of them on social media, with captions that were, I always thought, almost poignantly self-congratulatory. She also got married briefly to a man named Travis Fimmel. Charming, unreliable, ultimately unsuitable, and divorced him 3 years later. And during the divorce, she called me. She called me every night for 2 weeks, and I listened, and I helped, and I said all the things a sister is supposed to say. Because whatever she had done and whatever she continued to do, she was still my sister, and the love I felt for her was the complicated, bruised, stubborn kind of love that doesn't disappear just because someone has been unkind to you for 30 years. My daughter, Georgia, named for the woman who gave me my first safe place to live, was born when I was 34. Her father and I were together for 4 years and parted as kindly as two people who loved each other, but were not meant to build a life together can part. He remains to this day one of my closest friends. He is a man of tremendous integrity, and he raised our daughter with exactly the thoughtfulness and care I would have wished for her. Georgia grew up watching me work. She grew up understanding in the way that children of single working mothers always understand, not from being told but from simply watching, that nothing comes without effort. She is 26 years old now, and she is the most extraordinary person I have ever had the privilege of knowing. She is brave in ways I never was at her age. She is kind without being naive. She is funny, genuinely, wickedly funny, in a way that still catches me off guard and makes me laugh from somewhere deep. She called me on a Tuesday morning in September and said, "Mom, Blake proposed." I said yes. And then she burst into happy tears and I burst into happy tears and we cried together on the phone for about 10 minutes before either of us could say anything coherent. Blake Harmon. His name is Blake Harmon. His parents are Gisela and Leonard Harmon. Yes, Leonard, the same first name as the man who gave me my first investment, which I choose to take as a good sign. Blake is 30 years old, a structural engineer, gentle and earnest, and completely devoted to my daughter in the way that is both immediately obvious and quietly unshakable. I liked him the moment I met him. I loved him the first time I watched him look at my daughter when he thought nobody was watching. We planned the engagement party for November, a Saturday evening at the Palmer House Hilton. I rented a private dining room. I arranged the flowers, Georgia's favorites, white dahlias and eucalyptus. I hired a jazz quartet because Georgia has always loved jazz. I invited 40 people, our closest family and friends, and Blake's family and friends, and I felt, planning it all, a happiness so enormous and so clean that it almost frightened me. I invited Lagertha. Of course I invited Lagertha. She was family. She was George's aunt. Despite everything, despite 30 years of small cuts and casual dismissals, I invited her because hope is not something you can just decide to stop feeling. Not really. Not when the other person is your blood. I should have known. Looking back now, and I have looked back, more times than I can count, I should have known that Lagertha would find a way to make that evening about herself. She always had. It was as consistent as gravity. It was as reliable as the seasons. But I had hope, so I sent the invitation, and I told myself, this is different. This is Georgia's night. Even Lagertha would not do something at Georgia's engagement party. I was wrong. She arrived 45 minutes late. I noticed, but I said nothing. Late arrivals were Lagertha's way of ensuring she entered a room that was already full of people who could watch her walk in. I had observed this for 20 years, and I was no longer surprised by it. She looked beautiful. She always looked beautiful. She was wearing a deep red dress, not inappropriate for the event, but notable, the kind of notable that says I want to be noticed, and she had done her hair in a way that was clearly fresh from a salon. She kissed my cheek, complimented the venue in the slightly detached way of someone noting a fact rather than expressing genuine feeling, and immediately moved toward the bar. The evening was, up until that point, everything I had hoped for. Georgia was radiant. Blake's parents, Gisela, warm and effusive and already calling Georgia darling, and Leonard Harmon, more reserved but clearly moved by his son's happiness, were exactly the kind of people I had hoped they would be. My closest friends were there, my business partner Emory Blake, my attorney Peter Sinclair, my oldest friend Maggie Travis, who has known me since we were 8 years old, and who hugged me when I arrived and whispered, "You did good, Kath, you did so good." Dinner was served. The jazz quartet played something slow and sweet, and then Lagertha stood up. She stood up before I had a chance to give my own toast. I had prepared a toast. I had written it out longhand, revised it 4 times, and practiced it in my bathroom mirror that morning until I could get through it without crying. I had not told anyone I was planning to speak first. I simply assumed, as the mother of the bride-to-be, that this was understood. Lagertha stood up, and she tapped her glass, and the room went quiet. "I want to say a few words," she said, smiling her wide public smile, the one she reserved for performances, for moments when an audience was available. "I am Lagertha Hall, George's aunt, and I just I have so many feelings tonight, I don't know where to start. She laughed. The room laughed with her. She had always been able to do that, fill a room with warmth that felt genuine even when it wasn't. Georgia, she said, turning to my daughter with an expression of practiced tenderness. You are a beautiful, brilliant girl, and Blake, you are a very lucky man. Pause, laughter. And I know your mother has worked so hard to give you everything she possibly could. Another pause. A different kind of smile now, a smile I recognized like a particular childhood smell, like something from a room I had hoped never to enter again. Catherine always tried her absolute best, even when the rest of us were, shall we say, ahead of the curve. She always gave everything she had, bless her heart. Bless her heart. The room was not entirely sure how to react. Some people smiled uncertainly. Some people glanced at me. I saw Maggie Travis's jaw tighten. I saw Emory Blake, sitting to my left, go very still. Lagertha was not finished. I remember when Catherine was working as an assistant, she must have been in her late 20s, and I kept telling her, Kath, you need to aim higher, you need to believe in yourself more, and she would smile and nod, and you could tell she was trying to figure it all out, a little shrug. An affectionate one, designed to signal that this was meant lovingly, and here we are, she figured it out. Whatever it is she does now, consulting something or other, laughter, light laughter from those who didn't know better, she figured it out enough to throw a beautiful party for her beautiful daughter, and that is what matters. She raised her glass. To Georgia and Blake. The room echoed it. To Georgia and Blake. And I sat very still. Georgia was looking at me. Her eyes were bright and a little uncertain, the way a child's eyes go uncertain when they sense a disturbance they can't quite name. Blake had his hand over hers. Maggie was looking at me. Emory was looking at me. I picked up my glass. I smiled at Lagertha. A slow, full, genuine smile. The kind that comes not from amusement but from an absolute certainty about what comes next. And then I stood up. Thank you, Lagertha, I said. That was very you. A small laugh from the room. Uncertain laughter, the kind that doesn't know yet which direction the wind is blowing. I want to say a few words, I said. About Georgia, of course. About Blake, who I am so grateful is going to be my son-in-law. But I also want to take a moment, just a brief moment, to give everyone here a little context. Because my sister mentioned my work, and I think she undersold it slightly. Lagertha tilted her head. A fraction of something flickered behind her eyes. Not alarm yet, just attention. Emory Consulting Group, I said. That is the name of the company I founded 21 years ago. We operate in 14 states. We have 340 employees. Last year, our revenue exceeded $47 million. The room was very quiet now. I mention this not to brag, and I said this with all the gentleness I could find, because I was not performing cruelty, I was simply stating facts, but because my sister described my work as consulting something or other, and I would hate for Blake's family to leave tonight thinking I am in any way uncertain about what I do. I turned to Gisela and Leonard Harmon. Your son is marrying into a family where work ethic is not optional, where building something from nothing is a kind of religion, where the women, in particular, and I felt my throat tighten slightly but I held it, have always had to be quieter about their accomplishments than the world deserved. I am not quiet about it anymore. Back to the room. Back to my glass. There is one more thing, I said, and I say this with love, Lagertha, because it is true, and because I believe you deserve to know. I held her gaze. Harmon Hospitality Group, the hotel chain where you are currently employed as VP of Marketing, signed a consulting contract with Emory Consulting Group 3 years ago. We have been their operational efficiency partner ever since. Which means that for the last 3 years, your salary, a pause, gentle, deliberate, has been funded in part by the company your little sister built. The silence that followed was the loudest thing I have ever heard. Lagertha's face, and I will carry this image with me for the rest of my life, cycled through approximately 6 emotions in the space of 4 seconds. Confusion, disbelief, calculation, something that might have been shame. Something that looked very much like the realization that the ground she had been standing on for years was not the ground she believed it to be. I turned to my daughter. "Georgia," I said, and my voice was entirely steady. "You are the reason I built everything I built. Every late night, every hard decision. Every year of being underestimated, I used it as fuel, because I wanted you to grow up knowing that the quiet ones, the ones who get overlooked, the ones people dismiss, those are the ones you should watch most carefully." I raised my glass. "To you and Blake, may you always see each other clearly. May you always build together, and may you never, ever let anyone describe your life as something or other." The room erupted. Not in the performative, uncertain way it had laughed at Lagertha's toast. It erupted the way rooms do when something true has been said out loud that everyone in the room needed to hear. Maggie Travis was crying. Emory Blake was on his feet. Georgia stood up from her chair and crossed the room and held me in the way you hold someone when words are not enough. Blake Harmon's mother Gisela found me afterward, after the toasts, after the dancing, after the jazz quartet had shifted into something celebratory and bright, and she took both my hands in hers and said, "I have been waiting my entire life to see a woman do exactly what you just did." I thought about that on the drive home. I thought about it for a long time. I need to stop here for just a moment, because if you are still with me, and I hope with everything in me that you are, then you understand something about this story that goes beyond the drama of that night. You understand that this is not really about Lagertha. It is about the version of yourself you have been protecting, the version of yourself you have been building in silence while other people assumed you were standing still. Please subscribe. Your support means everything, and it reminds me that I am not alone in this. If this story has touched something in you, if you have ever been the quiet one, the overlooked one, the one who means well, press that button, because you belong here. And there is so much more of this story left to tell. She called me at 7:45 the next morning. I was sitting at my kitchen table with my coffee and my phone and the particular stillness that descends after a significant event, when the body has not yet caught up to the fact that the extraordinary thing has already happened, and life is, in all its mundane persistence, simply continuing. I saw her name on the screen and I let it ring twice before I answered, not to be unkind, just to breathe. "Kath?" Her voice was different than it had been last night. Stripped of its social polish, it sounded more the way I remembered it from childhood, younger, slightly unsure of its footing. I didn't know, about the contract, about all of it. "I know you didn't," I said. "You could have told me." "I could have," I agreed, "but you never really asked." A long silence. "I was awful," she said. And this was not a typical thing for Lagertha to say. In 30 years, I could count the number of times my sister had used the word awful to describe her own behavior. I counted them on one hand with fingers to spare. "You were unkind," I said. "Which is different from awful. Awful implies something monstrous. What you were was careless. You have always been careless with me, Lagertha. Not because you are a bad person, because you never thought I was significant enough to require care." Another silence, longer this time. "I thought you were fine," she said finally. "I always thought you were, Kath, you never said anything. You just smiled and got on with things. How was I supposed to know?" And there it was. The thing I had known for years but had never said out loud to her face, the thing that sat at the center of our entire history, like a stone at the bottom of a deep well. "Because asking," I said quietly, "would have required you to be curious about me. And you were never really curious about me, Lagertha. You were curious about whether I was okay enough that you wouldn't have to worry about me. That is different." I heard her breathing on the other end of the line. Slow, measured breathing. The breathing of a person who is working very hard not to cry. "I'm sorry," she said. "I know," I said. "Is that enough?" I thought about that. I thought about it genuinely, the way I have always tried to approach the hard questions in my life, without performance, without the comfort of a pre-prepared answer. I thought about my mother, Maggie, who used to say that forgiveness was not the same as forgetting, and that it was not even the same as reconciliation, and that sometimes the most honest thing you could do was simply tell the truth and then decide, slowly and without rushing, what kind of relationship the truth made possible. It is a start, I said. It is a real start. She exhaled. We talked for an hour. We talked longer than we had talked in years. It was not a perfect conversation. It was not the warm reconciliation scene from a movie where strings swell and all the old wounds simply dissolve. It was two grown women, one of them sitting in her kitchen in Chicago with her coffee going cold, one of them sitting somewhere in a hotel room in tears, trying, very carefully, to find out if there was anything real still left between them. I think there is. I am not sure yet what shape it will take, but I think there is. I want to tell you something, not as a person who has arrived at some finished destination. I haven't, nobody does. But as someone who has been where you might be right now and who has some things to say that she wishes someone had said to her. Being underestimated is not simply an insult, it is also an asset, if you know how to use it. When people dismiss you, they stop watching you. When they stop watching you, you have freedom. You have the freedom to build in the dark, to make mistakes that nobody is tracking, to try things that a watched person would never dare to try because the stakes of failing publicly are too high. The watched person plays it safe. The invisible person plays for keeps. I built Emory Consulting Group in relative obscurity for years. I made decisions that looked from the outside like nothing at all, because nobody was looking. I hired Sean Henderson when he was 24, and everyone in my industry thought he was too young. I hired an analyst named Gisela Amori, no relation to my company name. The naming was a genuine coincidence that I always took as a sign, when she had a gap in her resume and every other firm had passed her over. I took clients that the bigger firms considered too small to bother with, and I served those clients as if they were the most important accounts in the world, because to me, they were. The women who built this company alongside me, every single one of them had a story like mine. Every one of them had been underestimated, overlooked, condescended to. Every one of them had heard, at some point in her career, some version of "she means well," and every one of them had taken that dismissal and turned it into something that could not be ignored. I think about the way Lagertha looked at me across that room. The moment she understood what she had not known, what she had not thought to ask. I do not carry that memory with triumph. I carry it with something more complicated than that. A kind of grief maybe for all the years we might have had differently. For all the times she might have looked at me and been curious instead of dismissive. For all the conversations we never had because she never thought to start them. But I also carry it as a reminder of what happens when you build something real. When you do the quiet work, the unglamorous work, the work that nobody sees and nobody applauds and nobody believes in except you. When you do that work long enough and well enough, there comes a moment, and the moment always comes, when the room finally goes quiet and everything you have built speaks for itself. That moment is worth it. Every single lonely, exhausting, misunderstood year of it is worth it. Georgia called me the Sunday after the party. She called me the way she calls when she has been thinking about something for a while, not impulsively, but after she has turned it over enough times to know what she wants to say. "Mom," she said, "I want you to tell me the whole story." "What story?" "How you built Emory, from the beginning. I want to know everything." So I told her. I told her about Georgia Sinclair and the apartment with the cats and the soup on the stove. I told her about Peter Hurst and the notebooks I kept hidden in my desk drawer. I told her about Leonard Johnson and the view of the lake that looked like hammered silver. I told her about Sean Henderson at 24 and the clients that nobody else wanted, and the years of 16-hour days and the particular specific loneliness of building something that nobody can see yet. She listened without interrupting. At the end, she was quiet for a long moment, and then she said, "You never told me any of this before." "I know," I said. "Why?" "I thought about that, because I wanted you to believe it was possible without needing the details of how hard it was. I wanted you to look at what I had built and think, I can build something too, without being frightened by what the building costs." "Mom," she said, "I already knew it cost a lot. I watched you. I watched you every day of my entire life. I had to put the phone down for a moment, just for a moment. She is going to be extraordinary, she already is. And Blake Harmon, who builds things out of steel and concrete and physics, who understands the engineering of how weight is distributed so that structures don't collapse, he is going to stand beside her and help her hold whatever she builds. I know this the way I know very few things, with a certainty that lives below thought, in the body, in the bones. My daughter is going to be extraordinary, and I built the foundation she is standing on, and no one can take that away. Not a toast at a party, not 30 years of She Means Well, not anything. I want to take a moment to talk about the people, because I have told you about the company in terms of numbers, revenue, employees, states, and numbers are real, numbers matter, but they do not tell you what I am most proud of. I am most proud of Sean Henderson, who is now 40 years old and serves as our Chief Operating Officer, and who runs the day-to-day operations of Emori Consulting with a precision and a care that makes me proud every single time I see him work. He told me once that when he was 24 and I offered him the job, he almost said no, because he couldn't believe anyone was taking a chance on him. He said yes because something in my eyes, he told him that I meant it. I did mean it. I have always meant it. I am proud of Peter Sinclair, our General Counsel, who joined us in year 7 when the company was big enough that we needed real legal infrastructure and who has protected us and our clients with a ferocity and a brilliance that I am grateful for every day. I am proud of Gisela Amori, who is now a senior partner and who has built her own team within the firm, 12 people, all of them women, all of them chosen because they had that specific look in their eyes that I have learned to recognize. The look that says, I have more to give than anyone has been willing to take. I am proud of Maggie Travis, who never worked for me but who has been my closest friend since we were 8 years old, and who never, not once in all the years of building, ever said she means well about me. She said, always and only she will, as in, Kath will figure this out, Kath will get there. Kath will build something that makes everyone eat their words. She was right. She was always right. And I am proud, though proud is almost too small a word, of Johnson, Harmon, Blake, and Henderson, the internal team we assembled 4 years ago specifically to handle Harmon Hospitality Group, the team that Lagertha's paychecks have helped fund. Not as an act of revenge, that framing misses the point entirely, but simply because good work creates opportunity, and opportunity creates income, and income supports lives, and the strange circularity of that is one of the things about business that I find most beautiful. You build something, and it builds other things, and the ripples go further than you can see. I want to end with this, with a letter, to you if you need it. Dear Quiet One, I see you. I see you sitting at the table where someone else gets the applause. I see you at the party where someone else makes the room laugh, and you sit in the corner and smile and think, someday they will see. I see you doing the work that no one is watching. I see you taking notes in notebooks you keep hidden in your desk drawer because you are not ready to be laughed at yet. And the not ready is okay. The not ready is actually wisdom, because the moment you step into the light before you are prepared, they will use it against you. I see you getting up at midnight to learn the thing you do not know yet. I see you living on almost nothing because you are saving for the thing no one else can see you building. I see you saying fine when people ask how work is going, because fine is easier than watching their eyes glaze over when you try to explain what you are actually doing. I need you to know something. They are going to underestimate you. They are going to describe what you do as consulting something or other. They are going to tell you, not cruelly, not always, but consistently, that you mean well. They are going to look at your life through the lens of who they have already decided you are, and they are going to miss who you are actually becoming. Let them. Let them look away. Let them stop watching. Let them laugh at the party and clink their glasses and tell the room their version of who you are. Because you know who you are? And the day is coming, it is always coming, for the ones who do not give up, when the room will go quiet, when everything you have built will speak for itself, when the numbers will be on the table and the facts will be plain, and the story will be undeniable. That day is worth everything. Do not give up. Do not let the dismissal convince you it is the truth. Do not let the "she means well" be the last word. Because the last word is yours. It has always been yours. They just don't know it yet. Build. Build in the silence, and build in the dark, and build when you are tired, and when you are scared, and when you cannot see the end of it yet. Build because you are the only one who can see the thing you are building. Build because your daughter, your son, your niece, your nephew, the young person in your life who is watching you more closely than you know, needs to see what it looks like when a quiet person decides to stop being quiet about what she has done. Build. And one day you will stand up at a party, and the room will go quiet, and everything will speak for itself. I am Catherine Hall. I am 52 years old. I live in Chicago. I own a company. And nobody will ever describe what I do as something or other again. With love, and the absolute certainty that you are more than they know. Catherine. If this story found you today, if some part of it landed somewhere inside you that needed it, please subscribe. Please subscribe right now. Your support means everything, and it reminds me that I am not alone in this. It reminds me that the quiet ones are not actually alone at all. We are just spread out, building in our separate silences, waiting for the day we all get to stand up at the same time and say, "Look what we did." That day is coming. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment below telling me about your moment, the moment you were underestimated, or the moment you are working toward. I read every single one. I see you. And I will be here every week with more stories about the people who were overlooked and the extraordinary things they built while nobody was watching. Stay. There is always more. And to La Gertha, wherever she is reading this, if she ever does, I want to say one final thing. Thank you. Thank you for every year of She Means Well. You gave me something I could not have given myself. You gave me fuel.